Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone in today's class for the 6th elementary grade. Our textbook is Weekend 3 and today inshallah we will cover Unit 8, Lives, Ups and Downs, Grammar and Action on page 61. This lesson will be presented by me, teacher Mazen Harbi, and the sign language by Mr. Salih Al-Ujan. So let's begin. Quick reminder of our last lesson. In our last lesson, we did know the what we call the differences between regular and irregular verbs. And also we started to talk about when and how can we use irregular verbs. And the first thing we did is that, or we said is that we can use the irregular verbs no matter who is using it. For example, whether if I talk about myself, I can use a regular verb like I won. Like when I say I won. And also you, I can talk about or I can use a regular verb the same form when I talk about you. When I say you won. And also I can use a regular verb when I talk about he, like for example, he won or she won. And also we can use it when I talk about myself and you when we say we won. So also when I talk about a group of people, here we can use the irregular verb when I say they won. So no matter who we are talking about, we use the same verb or the same form without making any changes. Now, let's remind ourselves of these verbs or these phrases. I'm going to say the phrase and I would like you to repeat after me. So the first phrase we have is I won. Say with me. I won. You won. You won. He won. He won. She won. She won. We won. We won. You won. You won. And finally, they won. They won. Very good. So, as we said, we can use not this verb, but any other irregular verb. We can use it here and without making any changes, no matter who we are talking about. So, this is the first thing we did learn about irregular verbs last time. And also after this, we did listen to a chant that is called the past tense irregular verb chunks, where we had a chant which it has different types of verbs. And what we did is that we listened to these verbs not only by themselves, but also we did practice a sentence next to each of these verbs. So as a reminder, let's just remind ourselves of these verbs again and of this chant. So I'm going to read it and I would like you to listen, follow, and say after me. So let's start with the first one. Number one, we have the verb lost. Lost. And the sentence is, I lost a tennis match. I lost a tennis match. So this is what we will do. We will read each verb alone and then we will read the sentence that follow that verb. So let's start with number one. Lost. Lost. I lost a tennis match. Say with me. Lost. Lost. I lost a tennis match. Number two. Won. Won. We won a football game. Say with me. Won. Won. We won a football game. Number 3, got. Got. I got 200 points in a computer game. Say with me, got. Got. I got 200 points in a computer game. Number 4, was. Was. I was sick. Say with me, was. Was. I was sick. Number 5, made. Made. I made a tree house. Say with me, made. Made. I made a tree house. Number 6, saw. Saw. I saw a rainbow. Say with me, saw. Saw. I saw a rainbow. Number 7, caught. Caught. I caught a big fish. Say with me, caught. Caught. I caught a big fish. Number 8, had. Had. We had a cake. Had. Had. We had a cake. Number 9, broke. Broke. I broke my glasses. Broke. Broke. I broke my glasses. Number 10, wear. Wear. We were happy. Where. Where. We were happy. Very well. So this is our chant, where we did listen to this chant, and also we listened to 10 different verbs, irregular verbs, and not only this, but we also, what we did is that we used each of these verbs in a sentence. So like for example, the first verb here, which is lost, which means when we're losing a game. And the opposite of this verb, the opposite of lost, is won, when we win a game. Also with the third one here, when we talk about got, got means to have. When he said, I got 200 points in a computer game. And number 4, you talk about the verb was. When you talk about yourself, I was sick. Also, the verb number 5, made, it is the past of the verb make. Made when you're trying to make something. And also number 6 talks about saw. Saw. I saw a rainbow. So here saw is the verb or the past form of see, the verb see. And even here, caught. I caught a big fish. It means that I catch a big fish, and this is the past of catch. And number 8, had. We had a cake. Had here as is the past of have. Instead of saying we have, we said we had in the past. And the last 2 verbs are broke. I broke my leg, or I broke my glasses. And this is broke is the past of break. And finally, where we were happy here when I talk about myself among other people with me. So these are the irregular verbs, the 10 irregular verbs with their examples as well. And this is very important that we do memorize these verbs. Now, with regular verbs, we know that we can only add ed to a verb. But here with the irregular verbs, the only case that we can use them is that to memorize the one we practiced here in our book. So here we had 10 irregular verbs, then we should memorize these 10 irregular verbs. So, and the third thing we did last time is that we did listen and practice, and we do it in pairs. So we did listen to 10 important irregular verbs that we will often see in our book. And what we did is that we write the present tense of a verb, or the present form of a verb, and also, or the regular form, and also the past form. So now I'm going to show you, me and you, we're going to read the present or the regular form, and we will see how the irregular verb should be written for this verb. So, the table of irregular verbs. So the first verb here we need to know is a verb when. And we know what do you mean by when. So, how we write the past form of the verb when? By using this verb, won. Win, won. And the second verb is lose. Lose is the regular, and if you want to change it to the irregular verb in the past, it will be lost. So, lose, lost. And number 3, get. Get, got. Get, got. And the fourth one, am. Am is when I talk about myself, when I, instead of saying I am, in the past I would say I was. And when I say, instead of saying he is or she is, in the past I would say he was or she was. Next, make, made. Make, made. And the other list, see, saw. See, saw. Catch, caught. Catch, caught. And have, had. Have, like for example when we say we have a cake. Instead we can say we had. And if I talk about my brother, when I say he has, now I can use had in the past. So had here can use in the past for either have and has. Next, break, broke. Break, broke. And next, are, where. Are, where. So these are the 10 common irregular verbs that we will see in our book, and it's very important that we memorize these verbs. So now, let us move on to know our objectives in today's lesson. So in today's lesson, we're going to make sentences, use the past tense irregular verbs, and also what's more importantly is that we're going to use the past tense verbs in a game. So I would like you please now to open your books on page 61. I would like you please to open your books on page 61. Now on page 61, as you can see, here we're going to play a game that is called the verb game, where we're going to write and play the game and try to beat a partner who could be your classmate or a friend of yours. So how this game will go. So here we have, at this table, we have 9 verbs. And what we're going to do is that we're going to listen to the teacher saying the sentences, different sentences. And after the teacher do this, it is our turn to try to underline or circle the verbs that we heard. So for example, here you have these verbs on the table. If I said, for example, I was sick. If I say the sentence, I was sick. So what you're going to do is that you're going straight to this verb, was, and then you're going to either make a circle or underline the verb. So this is what we will do. Let's first, before we do this, let's first read the verbs that we have here, the 9 verbs that we have here, and then we'll start listening to the teacher saying the sentences. So the verbs are was, got, lost, had, caught, broke, made, saw, and were. So these are the verbs, and now it is our turn to first listen to the teacher. Listen to me carefully and underline the words or the verbs that you heard. Listen to me and underline the verbs that you heard. So let's begin. Now in verb game 1, we're going to read the sentences. We're going to listen to the sentences the teacher is about to say. So let's start now by listening to the teacher. I caught a big fish. I caught a big fish. I lost a football game. I lost a football game. I got 200 points in a computer game. I got 200 points in a computer game. I had a cake. I had a cake. We were happy. We were happy. I made a tree house. I made a tree house. Very well. Now, you have listened to the sentences that I said. Now, it is your turn to remind me what are the verbs you heard. So, among these verbs on the table, what are the verbs you heard? The first one you heard is coat. Coat. That was the first verb you heard. And what do you think? What was the second one? The second one, of course, is lost. Lost. I lost a game. And the third one is? The third one is got. Got. What about the fourth one? The fourth one is had. Had. And the other one is were. When we say we were happy. And finally, the last one the teacher said is made. Made. I made a tree house. So you see, these are the verbs that we heard, and the rest are the verbs that we didn't listen or we didn't hear the teacher say. So this is about the verb game number 1. What about number 2? Let's move straight to number 2. But before we do this, these are the verbs that we heard the teacher say, which is made, had, caught, got, lost, and were. These are the verbs that the teacher said. Now, the second game, which is called the verb game 2. Now we're going to play it a little different. So in this game, what we're going to do is we're going to listen to the teacher saying sentences. And we're going to write each sentence. We're going to write each sentence the teacher say. And not only circling or underlining, as you can see here, this is an empty table. Now it is our turn to write down the verbs that the teacher said. So listen very carefully. I'm going to number them. I'm going to say number one, and I'm going to read the sentence. Number two, and I'm going to read the sentence. Now it is your turn to write down the verbs that you are hearing and to put them here on the table. So let's begin. Let's begin listening to the table, the verbs that the teacher will say, and make sure you write them on this table. So let's start. Number one, I got 200 points in a computer game. I got 200 points in a computer game. Number two, we lost a football game. We lost a football game. Number three, we were happy. We were happy. Number four, I caught a big fish. I caught a big fish. Number five, I made a tree house. I made a tree house. Number six, I had a cake. I had a cake. Number seven, I saw a rainbow. I saw a rainbow. Number eight, I was sick. I was sick. And number nine, I broke my glasses. I broke my glasses. So, I hope you got all the verbs from these 9 sentences. So if you do, you will have a table similar to this, where in this table we did wrote all the verbs that I said. Verbs like had, got, caught, was, lost, made, broke, saw, and were, but in different order. So try this game more often. It will be fun and it will be more interesting, where you can learn and where by playing this game you can memorize these irregular verbs and keep them in mind. So at the end, it's important that you are able to say the past form of 6 irregular verbs and also to say 2 sentences using the past tense irregular verbs. So now, my dear student, we have reached the end of our lesson. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.